Good morning, Soho Parish. I wasn't expecting to do an assembly on this today, but I've been watching the news a lot recently over the last week, and I think that perhaps some of you have too. And I've seen a lot of scenes like the one behind me. The people in the picture behind me are protesting. They're in California, and all over America there are similar protests to this one. Do you know what it means to protest? My children often protest when I give them a vegetable they don't like for dinner. No, I don't want it. And these people are protesting to say that they don't want something. They don't want something. And what they don't want is racism. The reason that they're protesting now, which is not a good time for protests, because of course we're actually all supposed to stay at home, and that's across the world because of coronavirus. But the reason that they're protesting is because very recently a man was treated really unfairly, and everybody was able to see images of his treatment. He was a black man, and he was treated very unfairly by a white police officer. Now, we know, of course, that not all police officers treat people unfairly. We know our local police officers in Soho. They look after us and they care for the community, and they don't discriminate between people because of the colour of their skin. But in this case, many people believe that this man's unfair treatment was because of the colour of his skin, and it was carried out by a police officer. These people who are protesting don't believe that police officers are bad, but they believe that the people who stand by and allow people to behave in this way are doing the wrong thing. And that's what they're protesting about. Not just in the police, but in many companies, industries, schools around the world. Where somebody does the wrong thing and behaves in a racist way, it's not just a problem about that person. It's a problem about all of the people who allow them to behave that way by not stopping them. These people are protesting because they want racism to stop. And it's not just happening in America. This one event happened in America, but in England too. This protest took place in Trafalgar Square, which is, of course, very close to school. Some of you might have heard it. You might have seen some of the protesters. You can see that many of them are holding banners that say Black Lives Matter. They shouldn't have to hold up that banner, should they? Of course Black Lives Matter. But the fact that they're having to hold it up shows that there is something wrong and it needs to be put right. Racism. There's lots of big words in this definition. I'm going to try and explain them. Racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. So in this case, what's happened in America, someone who was white believed that they were superior to someone who was black, and other people allowed them to do something wrong because of it. They allowed them to prejudge someone based only on the colour of their skin, to make a judgment of what they were like before knowing them. They've allowed them to discriminate, to treat them differently because of the colour of their skin. And antagonism means behaving aggressively or unkindly towards someone so that they feel angry or upset. And that, again, is part of racism. If you behave in that way because of the colour of someone's skin, it's racism. I have another definition here. This is a further definition. This is the belief, racism is the belief, that all members of each race possess characteristics, abilities, or qualities specific to that race. So because you're black, you behave a certain way. Because you're white, you behave a certain way. Because you're Chinese, you behave a certain way. Now, we know at Soho Parish, because one of our values is individuality, that we don't behave the way we behave because of our race. We behave the way we behave because we have our own unique set of characteristics that makes us special. And it's nothing to do with our race. This is a very dangerous part of the definition of racism, because when it's used to distinguish a race as inferior or superior to another race, it can become very dangerous. Those of you that have studied World War II know what happened with Hitler. Hitler persuaded the German people that the Jewish people in Germany and in other areas around them were bad, that they were taking their jobs, that they were behaving in a certain way just because they were Jewish. And he was convincing. He convinced people. And it led to many, many Jewish deaths. And that's why racism is so dangerous. This is a picture of Colin Kaepernick. And Colin Kaepernick did a brave thing. It was a difficult thing. He was protesting for the same reason as the people are protesting now, because he felt that in America, in the police force, there is some racism, and that other people were allowing it to continue. They were allowing it to happen. They were not stopping it. He's a football player, an American football player. And during the national anthem, before a very important game, instead of standing up, which everybody normally does, he went down on one knee. He took a knee, that's what they call it in football, as a sign that he didn't like what was going on, as a sign that he didn't want racism, as a protest. And this happened in 2016, and he could have lost his job. So he took a big risk. But he strongly believed that he needed to make a stand, that he needed to make a protest. And today, because many people are protesting the same thing, all over America, people have started to take a knee to show their solidarity with Black people and to show that they don't agree that racism is okay, that it shouldn't be allowed to happen. And I think what's particularly striking to see is the police officers. These police officers have been asked to go out to where people are protesting and to make sure that they do it peacefully. And some people don't want to do it peacefully because they are so upset and angry. But the police are there to keep the peace. They're there to make sure everybody is safe. They've got a very difficult job at the moment. These police officers have taken a knee to show their support for the protesters. This is another image of police officers taking a knee. As you can see, this is another protest, this time in Amsterdam. And here in the UK, Newcastle United took a knee as part of their training match, which they were doing at a social distance. And that's to show their support as well, to show that they believe Black Lives Matter. And here's some children. I think we've talked about this at school before. In the 1960s in America, there was a very big movement called the Civil Rights Movement. And I'm sure that you've heard many stories from that time. You've heard about Rosa Parks, you've heard about Martin Luther King. But I wonder if you've heard about the children. Because many, many children protested as part of the Civil Rights Movement. And what they were protesting about was the fact that where they lived, in Birmingham, Alabama, in America, many, many places, in fact, almost everywhere, was segregated. That means separated. And groups of people, Black and white people, were treated differently. So we're back to that word discrimination. They were treated so differently that they were separated. They couldn't sit together on the bus. They couldn't go to the same schools. So there was a school for black children and a school for white children. They couldn't eat in the same restaurants. They even couldn't attend the fairground at the same time. There would be a certain day when black people were allowed to use the fairground, and the rest of the time it was just for white people. And the treatment wasn't just different, it was unfair. So white people got better treatment than black people. And many people felt unhappy about this, and there were many, many marches and protests, most of them incredibly peaceful. People just marched to show how they felt. And the children started to take part. The children started to make peaceful protests. And here's an image of some children sitting down with their signs, and they're asking for their schools to be desegregated. That means they want to mix, they want to go to the same school. The children were very brave at this time. It was a very dangerous time for protesters. And in fact, they were arrested. Groups of children were arrested by the police when they first started protesting, and some of them had to stay in prison for up to 5 days. Can you imagine being without your parents in a cell for 5 days? Well, people across America heard about this and they were furious. And in fact, it brought the idea of the civil rights movement and the importance of desegregation to many people around America who didn't really understand what was happening. And that was because of the children's protest. So I think the important thing is for you and for us at Soho Parish to know that children can make a difference too. And you must make a difference. And you're probably thinking, is Louise telling me to get a sign and go out and protest? Well, let me say, I'm definitely not telling you to do that. It wouldn't be safe at the moment, and it's not really the right thing for children to be doing at the moment. But there are many ways that you can make a protest. And the best one is to be part of the change. And we can be part of this change by remembering the Soho Parish values. Let's start with love. We can show our love to everyone. It doesn't matter what their ethnicity is. It doesn't matter where their family come from. It doesn't matter what the colour of their skin is. We show love to everyone equally. We can have courage. Many of the people I've been talking about today had courage. They were brave. They had a lot to lose, but they did things anyway because they didn't agree with what was happening. And when your friend calls someone a name, you can have the courage to say, no, that's not acceptable. That's not the way we behave to each other. You could even say that to a grown-up. That would take courage, wouldn't it? But if you see someone doing the wrong thing, you could protest. As we all know at Soho Parish, individuality is really important. Our individuality is what makes us special. But it's also important to treat all individuals equally and with fairness. And if we can do that, then that's also a protest against racism. And finally, our community. We're stronger together, aren't we? When I talked earlier on about saying no to someone in your class who might be doing the wrong thing, it's hard to do that by yourself, isn't it? But if you can have another friend with you who can help, who can say together, this isn't how we want to behave. We want to behave better than this. Then we're doing the right thing, aren't we? And we're stronger together. If you feel like making a protest, there's lots of things you can do. You could start by making a poster or sending a message. If you'd like to send me any posters or messages, I'm very happy to receive them. So please do send those to my email or to your teacher's email, or upload them to one of your, to Seesaw or to Tapestry. I'd love to see them. And I'm going to leave you now with a message from our school community at Soho Parish, because everybody there feels very strongly about this and they wanted to share with you their feelings. Bye-bye.
At Soho Parish, we value love, individuality and community. We come together with mutual respect, tolerance and compassion for all, and we celebrate uniqueness and difference. So coming together as part of that community and as part of the worldwide community, I say no to racism.
Everyone is worthy of love. We must have the courage to stand against prejudice and educate ourselves, because nothing will change if it isn't challenged.
Unite together, say no to racism. We are all human.
Say no to racism. We love and care for all.
We're all made in the image of God, so Black Lives Matter.
The differences between us make life interesting and exciting. It would be really boring if we all looked the same. But sometimes people can be unkind to people because of the colour of their skin. They can say hurtful things to them, or they can hurt them physically because they look different to them. This is called racism, and it's wrong. See, no one has the right to judge anybody or to hurt anyone with their words or their actions because of the colour of their skin. I know what it feels like to be a child in primary school and have other children say unkind things to you because of the colour of your skin. I also know what it feels like to be an adult and have people say unkind things to you or judge you because you look different. It's really hurtful, and it can often make you feel like you just don't belong. Those words can stay with you for such a long time, and it really is painful. This is why I stand up against racism. I stand up against racism, and I stand for love, equality, individuality and respect, because these are important values. I love being a part of Soho Parish because we just know how important these values are, and we know how important it is to celebrate everybody's differences. We know that it's important to stand up for anything when we see it that is wrong, and this is why we stand up against racism.
Black Lives Matter. Let's stand together to say no to racism.
Racism and racial bullying is wrong. Speak up if you see racism. Standing up to racism is a powerful sign of support. Show racism the red card.
It's not black against white, it's everyone against racism. Don't be neutral.
You need to educate yourself.
Because Black Lives Matter.
One of the things I most love about Soho Parish is how different we all are and how accepting we are of it. We know not to judge anyone by the colour of their skin, and we like to include everyone because everyone matters.
I say no to racism and all forms of discrimination. It should not be tolerated.
We say no to racism.
Black Lives Matter. George Floyd's life mattered. Every person is created in the image of God, and everyone is of equal value to God. Our 5 Soho Parish values help us to live our lives, and 2 of them in particular help us to show that Black Lives matter to us. Love will help us to be kind to everyone and to show compassion and respect. Courage will help us to be brave and to show determination and resilience. Courage will enable us to speak out against what is wrong and to act for and support what is right. Black Lives Matter.
We all need to make a stand against racism.
Our skin colour doesn't define us. It is important to show love regardless of skin colour and to know about the individual. We should feel confident about talking openly about any form of racism to help build a more equal and inclusive community and society. So Soho Parish. Be inspired, be educated, be empowered, and say no to racism.
Hello everyone, I hope you're well and healthy. So my wife Susanna and myself want to join with our voices to say no to racism, and we're going to sing a song that is originally from Spain, but the African descendants that came to Colombia during the colonial time, they embraced it, they added the beautiful rhythms, and it became a very, very well-known lullaby for children. And I have to say that we owe a lot to African descendants and to Africans in general, because without the rhythms, the music that we have and we listen to today, no matter the style and no matter the where it comes from, that music without Africa would be very, very boring. So this is Señora Santana, and it goes a bit like this. Señora Santana, ¿por qué llora el niño? Por una manzana que se le ha perdido. Señora Santana, ¿por qué llora el niño? Por una manzana que se le ha perdido. Yo van, San Antonio ya se van. Yo van, San Antonio ya se van.
I've written you a poem and it's called Be the Change. Be the change that doesn't judge different creeds and colours. Be the change that you yourself wish to see in others. Be the change that doesn't let any wrongs pass you by. Be the change that isn't scared to ask the question, why? Be the change and fight the fight to achieve equality. Be the change who will not say, but this doesn't affect me. Be the change who asks for help if you do not understand. Be the change to make it safe for all across the land. Be the change which turns its back on a bias towards race. Be the change and all as one make the world a better place.